it's just a huge honor today to be podcast interviewing my classmate all the way through dental school, Dr. John Flucke, DDS. He's probably the only guest I've had on that needs no introduction. You all know him from Dental Products and Report, the technology editor. He's the Chief Development Officer of Seller and Consulting. He was born and raised in Kansas City. That's why I'm wearing the Kansas City Chiefs. So what was greater for you, John, the Kansas City Chiefs or the Royals?
The Royals.
The Royals.
I'm a baseball guy, but the Chiefs thing was pretty cool. But I mean, I've got one of these sitting in my office that I play with when I'm thinking. I don't have a football for that.
Well, they won the World Series when we were in school, and then they just did it again a year ago. So that was when everybody was saying how long ago it was. It's like, dude, don't say that because that means we're old.
No. That was like last week to me, so that's totally cool. But I missed the parade in '85. I made the parade in 2015. I wasn't missing that again.
Oh my gosh! So you were so he received his doctor of dental surgery degree from the University of Missouri Kansas City in 1987, and it was Farran and Flucke and Neil Fiora. So I sat by this guy for 4 years. He has practiced in Lee Summit since 1989 and was pleased to open his new state-of-the-art facility in 2007. His passion is technology, and he is always looking for the latest development to benefit his patients. His knowledge on technology makes him a frequent lecturer at major dental education events, contributing editor to dental publications, and an internationally recognized opinion leader. Dr. Flucke enjoys spending time with his family, messing around with computers and techno stuff and running. I love, I'm looking at now in our contact, our picture of you and I together in what was it, Sundance?
Robert Redford at Sundance, Utah.
So, my gosh, so John, when we got out of dental school, the new hot technology was the automatic garage door opener. Did you see any of this thing coming? Laptops and Facebook and everything? I mean, what does this surprise you or what? Yeah.
Actually, it kind of does surprise me. I mean, I remember that when we were in school, the big thing was that I basically sold every piece of garbage I owned and had a car phone put into my car in January of 1987 because I thought it was cool. And that was the state of the art, that and fax machines. So I thought we'd probably get some really neat communication tools over the years, but I never envisioned the explosion that we've seen now.
And do you think it's just going to keep going? I mean, do you think two kids could walk out of dental school right now and have the same experience you and I did, where 30 years from now they won't even have seen it coming?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. Clinical knowledge, according to some experts, doubles every 18 months. And that's just massive. We get more information in a day now than people in the Middle Ages got in their life. I saw a stat that said that like one issue of the New York Times is more somebody that lived in the 1400s, got their lifetime. So yeah, I think people back and it'll be just, it'll be like, 50 years now, it'll be like us looking back, into the 1950s when, state of the art was black and white TV. I mean, it'll continue to expand. There's stuff out there that we haven't even thought of that somebody's going to come up with. It's a great time to be alive.
It's a great time to be alive. On that note,
it is.
Well, I'm a big fan of your it's blog.dentical.com. Now, your patient website is Enlightened Smiles, Kansas City. I love your tweets on Twitter. You're at @jflucke. But what does the word dentical mean, and where did that come from?
Okay, well, dentical is I happen to love sharks. I've always had a thing for sharks my entire life. In fact, I can't find it. Here we go. My Post-it notes. These are the Post-it notes that I leave around the office.
Oh, nice. So that's
I've
why your email is Sharky at Dentical?
Yep, exactly. And dentical, if you've ever felt shark skin, it's smooth in one direction and very rough in another. And on shark skin, there are little microscopic projections injections called dermal denticles, and they're triangular. They look like little teeth embedded in the skin, and they perform a lot of functions for the shark. They streamline it, they make it more steady in the water. And back in the good old days of the 90s, when the internet was starting to break, I read an article that said, people are theorizing in 6 to 8 months the whole idea of one word websites will be a thing of the past, that every single word that has any real meaning will have been snagged. And I thought, holy mackerel, I'd known about denticles for years. And I thought, I should see if that's available. And lo and behold, it was, and I grabbed it. It's short, it's sweet, it's easy to remember. It's got a thing to do with, my passion, which is, dentistry. And it ties the whole shark thing in. So it worked really well for me.
I could read your blogs all day long. They're a must read. I almost think I should just start going through them. The last one you wrote was on Monday. It's Ultradense Gemini Laser gets upgrade with photomodulation tip.
Yeah. Yeah, they just upgraded the laser. They've had the Gemini laser on the market for about 2.5 years now. And one of the things that laser light does is it has this profound effect on cellular metabolism, cellular energies, and it also decreases inflammation and other things. And what the photobiomodulation is it spreads that laser energy out over a larger area in a diffuse beam that allows you to do things like TMJ treatment, and aphthous lesion treatment that treats larger areas of the mouth. Photobiomodulation is something that you don't hear a lot about, but it's a real phenomenon. And a lot of people, will take a laser tip and just, apply it to an area in the mouth and kind of dance around and paint it. But a true, what they call a PBM tip, a photobiomodulation tip, will allow you to spread that energy out over a greater area and basically just hold your hands still and pump all those photons directly into the area that you're trying to treat.
And your other one was, you just got back from Chicago Midwinter, right?
Yeah, yep. Just got back on late Saturday afternoon. Was up there for like 3 days, 4 days. Oh, it's a blur. You know what it's like. We've been there together. And
was the weather nice and warm? Was it 60,
Actually,
70?
It was 4, I think, on one day, but then it got to like 40, so it wasn't too bad.
So what was it?
But there was a lot of cool stuff there.
Yeah. Did anything? What captured your mind at Chicago Midwinter? What did you see that you weren't expecting, or what? Did anything get you excited or passionate?
Right now we're in kind of a development phase, and evolution, according to Darwin, goes in what they call punctuated equilibrium, which is huge amount of change, and then it kind of holds for a while, and you get small incremental changes, and then suddenly a huge change again. So we're in one of those incremental phases, but what we're seeing on things that are really getting me excited are things in the 3D world. It's becoming so much easier to use intraoral scanners. Companies are now putting together software packages that allow you to import the STL files from your 3D scan and put those inside of a cone beam to where you literally can get virtual articulation, of the situation. And those kind of things, the stuff dealing with 3D of mills and printing and all of that, that's going to be our next big, I think, change in dentistry, is going to be this whole idea of moving now to a totally 3D digital world.
Wow. And you think that's around the corner?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're definitely closing in on it already.
So what would you say?
Been a lot of changes.
What would you say that you and I have lived through? From 87, I thought the first revolution we walked out to was the big materials revolution. We were going from amalgam and gold to composites. And I remember we got out, the big news of the day was always a composite and a bonding agent. And then it slipped into the digital computer revolution. So do you say that in our 32 years since the class of 87, that it was materials revolution followed by digital revolution, or did I miss a revolution, or do you name them differently?
No, I think you've got it spot on. We went with the whole idea of, when you and I were in school, it was a big deal to, to etch enamel. you only etched enamel. I remember that you would get in huge trouble if you etched dentin. That was, verboten. And
You'd have to say
then
3 Hail
we came
Marys and
along.
Our Father.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Minimum. Sometimes 2 Our Fathers on top of that. And a Hail Holy Queen if you really, overdid it with the etch. But anyway, after that whole thing of composites and then, wet bonding and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Then I think we did jump into the digital thing, and the digital. One of the reasons I'm excited about this 3D piece is that we jumped into this thing of digital, and first it was things like digital x-ray, and then it was intraoral cameras, and there were all these individual parts, and they all kind of worked, but there were carts and you were always hauling things in, and it was very inefficient. And then we had the launch of the PC thing, which, when personal computers suddenly went from, tens of thousands of dollars down to, reasonable costs. And then we got this way to link all of those technologies, our cameras, our x-rays, all of that, our charts, into the computer. And so we kind of started out with what I call the technology phase. Then we had what I refer to as the integration phase, when all of these pieces, became talking to one another. And then once we got that, then I think now we've kind of moved into the 3D phase of the idea of having, all of these 3D pieces. And once again, we're back to the thing now of there's a cone beam unit, and there's an intraoral scanner, and there's a mill, and there's a printer. And I think we're going to see another integration phase probably in the next 5 years or less, where we begin to pull all of those 3D technologies together, and they become much more seamless than they ever were.
So, you can't have hot without cold. I mean, you start off
Right.
first level math. You have addition followed by the inversion of subtraction. Then they take you to level 2, multiplication followed by the inversion of division. You can't have hot without cold. So, like when you talk about this whole digital revolution, the flip side of that is security. Now you're hacking into me. Do you ever worry about the cybersecurity part of that? And what are your thoughts on it? Because I have a lot of older dentists, and by older I mean the class of '86 and back, not the young ones out of '87. Right. But I mean, I still have some friends that always rant about how they stuck with paper. They never followed the digital guys like you. They still have paper charts. Right. Do you think does those cybersecurity issues, do they ever make you wish you still had a paper chart?
They don't make me wish I had a paper chart, but they do concern me. It's the same thing kind of as, I love my car. Now that car can get stolen, but does that mean I want a bicycle or a horse again? No, absolutely not. But the security aspect of this really is something that I think dentists need to pay attention to. And what I want people to really get the gist of in the digital world with security is, now I'll tell you a quick story. I had a friend of mine that said, I don't get this whole thing about security, because who cares if Mrs. Jones just had a crown on tooth number 30? And I get that. Nobody does care about that. But what they do care about is that your information has Mrs. Jones' social security number, her driver's license number, all of her insurance information, all of this information that we need to keep secure. And that's what concerns me, is the security issues behind that. And it's making sure that people understand that they're not wanting to steal information about people for their dental procedures. They want to be able to have enough information to go in and crack the banks, and open new loans and, hijack credit cards and all that kind of stuff. So it's one of those things. It's like you said, every up has a down, every left has a right. And unfortunately, it seems like as soon as somebody invents something, whatever it is, the dark side comes along and figures out a way to profit from it, in an illegal realm. And we've just got to watch out for that and be prepared for it as much as possible.
So, how much are you paying for a mask right now with the coronavirus? What will Getsy even sell? Will Getsy even sell you a box of masks these days?
Hey, you know what? I actually have when it hit, when the coronavirus started to make fairly big public awareness in like mid-January, I bought masks. I was like, I'm buying extra masks and extra gloves and stockpiling them, so I'm good.
So you wrote a blog on the coronavirus, February 13th. Do you and then today the market went down 1,000, and of course they blame whatever. But are you
Right.
starting to get concerned about that, or what are your thoughts on the coronavirus?
No, honestly, it's I think back to, and I might have the numbers wrong, but the gist of this will be right, which is, a few years ago we had the H1N1, and everybody panicked, and there was this thing of, oh, there's going to be 40,000 deaths from the H1N1, and I don't know if there were, but there could have been. But the part that I think is interesting is they didn't tell you that every flu season, like 30 to 35,000 people die of the flu anyway. So okay, so H1N1 was serious, and between 5 and 10,000 more people passed away because of it. And is that important to know? Oh yeah, and is it a tragedy? Absolutely. But it's not like 40 or 50,000 healthy people that were going to live long lives suddenly just fell over because of this virus. Universal precautions and being aware of that. People not coming into an appointment, when they're feeling well and things like that. But I'm not overly concerned that we're in a sudden pandemic like the Black Death or the flu that, swept Europe in, what was it, like late 1919s or 1920 or something like that.
The
There
Spanish
I think it was
influenza.
called,
The Spanish
yeah, it was the
influenza
Spanish influenza.
was
Yeah.
19. And you know why they called it Spanish influenza when it was a pandemic in every country? Because all the other countries had militaries and were shooting people. So they called it Spanish because those were the only ones that didn't have a tank or a ship or a jeep outside your country. But that's why Spanish got it, blamed it. But when they trace it back, it started in our great state of Kansas. It was traced back to a
Oh my
pig.
gosh.
Yeah, that was the biggest crime scene in the world, and a guy caught it from a pig, and then he was for the military. What do you call that? Drafted.
Yeah.
And went to
Yeah.
Leavenworth.
Leavenworth.
And that was the
Leavenworth,
first
Kansas. Fort
and that
Leavenworth.
and that was the first breakout, and then they transferred that group to England, and that was the second breakout. And but yeah, it was all traced back from a pig to a human, and it's
Interesting. From our home state, you and me.
from our home state.
Because you grew up in Wichita.
Yeah. And of course, the pigs though that had those viruses, they were more closer to Kansas City than Wichita. The ones in Wichita were a little cleaner. But yeah, crazy.
I was nowhere near those pigs. I just want to specify that for the record. I wasn't born yet, and I was nowhere near those pigs.
But the real gift was the pandemic before that was during Newton's life. That's when 1/3 of Europe got wiped out by the plague. And my gosh,
Yeah.
I used to always
Yeah, the
wonder
Black
if
Death.
Sir Isaac Newton would have fallen from the plague, how much longer would it have taken for someone to just come out with calculus? I mean, and gravity and motion.
Oh
and
yeah,
all that stuff.
yeah. You see that, where these people, these brilliant people, make these brilliant deductions, and you wonder, gosh, if one thing would have happened, if one little straw would have gone somewhere else, what would have happened to the whole thing? And it's an interesting thing to think about sometimes.
I want to ask you. It says, I mean, I can't think of anybody who knows more about technology than you. I mean, really, my hat's off. I've been following you for 32 years. And I love your blogs, love your information. I hope I don't blatantly steal too many of your lines and your material, but I try to. But a lot of
Hey, that's okay. I'm stealing yours too, Howard. So we're even.
Some of these kids get caught up on. There's like, what are we on, the 89th generation of bonding agents? And it just keeps going and going. And then I'll talk to the reps. Like I was talking to a Benco rep the other day, and she's like, these dentists they're all obsessed about what type of bonding agent and all that. And then I go test their curing light. Hell, their curing light doesn't even work. It's like
Bingo. Yeah.
Yeah, so I know you wrote a blog on Ultradense Velo curing light, but where are you at? What generation of bonding agent are you in? Let's see, a Super Bowl 57. I figure you're on Super Bowl 69 bonding agent. What are you doing for bonding agents, curing lights?
Okay. Interestingly enough, with all the technology that's out there, I am still using a 5th-generation technique. So I'm bevel your enamel, etch the enamel, etch the dent in this total etch technique. I go in with a primer and bonding agent in a single step. Primer and bonding agent in separate step, or 4th generation, in a single steps, 5th generation. Cure that, and then layer my composite in 2 to 3 millimeters, and that's the way I've been doing it for absolutely ever. I mean, since probably late 90s, and it works. I don't have much sensitivity. I think a lot of the big thing on all these extra generations of bonding agents, I don't think they've been that amazing personally. I think a lot of it is marketing, and I think some of it is just because for whatever reason people get sensitivity with different techniques, and rather than troubleshoot their technique, they just assume it's the material and they go on from there. But the curing light piece of it is huge. And the curing light, in my opinion, I call it the stepchild of adhesive dentistry, because it's always there but nobody ever pays any attention to it. And it's really important to know how to cure and how to cure properly. And like you said, a lot of people never check their curing lights. They don't know what their depth of cure is. They don't know what the wavelength of their light is. And there's a ton of people that are missing the boat on that. They buy these $50 lights online that are made somewhere, you don't even know the wavelength of them, you don't know the intensity of them. All you know is you only paid $50 for them. And there are some changes that are coming out in curing right now. I mean, I've got one right here that I've been playing with. This one was just launched at the Chicago Midwinter, and this is the Monet curing laser from AMD. They're located in Utah, and this is the first handheld curing laser on the market. This thing gives you a depth of cure of around 8 millimeters on my bench so far.
So
that's a phenomenal depth of cure.
When you say AMD, that was originally Alan Miller Dentistry. Alan Miller, AMD
Correct.
Lasers.
Yeah, Alan Miller.
I thought he was a Hoosier from Indiana, but now
he got out of dentistry, and he sold his company. The company is now owned by CAO Group, out of Utah.
CAO.
So Alan.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Alan is actually, it's interesting. He is starting a vodka company called Blue Marble, I believe is the name of it. And he decided he got out of the dental game and decided to go into the consumption game, which is, kind of cool, and good luck to him. He's a great guy.
Yeah, as an Irish man, I can't recommend the vodka. I mean, it's
never tried it myself, but I can recommend Al. He's a good dude.
Oh, I love Al, and that is amazing. And so he's out of dentistry completely. He sold that to CAO out of
Yeah,
that is amazing.
CAO is actually kind of running it. To the best of my knowledge, you're running it as two companies. They do still, run AMD as a company. And then they have CAO Group, which is, they do other things, research and development. And, they did a lot of third-party manufacturing for a while, but now they've kind of decided to get into it and do their own branding, So they've got this laser curing light on the market. This is one of the first things that's not just a clinical diode laser like AMD is famous for.
So I want to switch gears completely, because you're a tech guy and you're talking about printing and all that stuff. When you and I were in school, the orthodontist basically kept that out of the curriculum. I mean, we had endodontists like Bambi Duro Oguntepe teaching us endo. We had Charles White and Brett Ferguson teaching us anything where they could share us with oral surgery. But then when it came to orthodontics, they taught us like embryonic facial growth and development and all this stuff. Basically, it was like, we're going to teach you Nothing that would apply to orthodontics. Well, now this clear aligner's taken off, and the patents went off, and I've now found over 40 clear aligner companies. And I know I've read your blog about the Sure Smile liners. I mean, you got Invisalign, you got I say Big Blue is Invisalign, Big Red's 3M Oral Care, Big Purple Smile Direct Club. What color would you give Big Stan Bergman with Henry Schein Reveal clear aligners? You got to give me a color for, what color do you think of when you think of Stan Bergman?
Gosh, that's a toughie. Green, maybe.
Green, yeah, green. Oh my God, that's perfect. I'm stealing that because he's got to be the richest man in Dennis. So big green. Oh, that is hilarious.
So yeah, Henry Schein is a very successful company, obviously. So green is probably a good color for them.
So then, what color would you give to Dentsply Sirona Sure Smile? What color are those boys?
Gee. Oh gosh, you're making me think of colors. How about purple?
Well, purple's the Smiles Direct Club. Smiles Direct Club. They own purple. So
let's go with gold. Let's go gold because it's a regal color, and they're a huge manufacturer. So
yeah, I like that. So are you agnostic to aligners? Do you think an aligners and aligners and aligner, or do you think that some people want to just stay with the Invisalign? That was the tried and true blue. Right. Are you doing clear aligners yourself, or are you sending that all to the orthodontist?
Actually, no, we're doing clear aligners, and as of now, I am still aligned with Big Blue. I'm an Invisalign provider. I am really excited about the way this is all going to shake out. And I'm, one of these things I always say is, if you give me some hardware, I'll tear it apart, I'll break it, I'll figure out what makes it work, I'll figure out, where the faults are and stuff. But when it comes to patients, I'm slower to adopt. I want to see, how the market shakes out. I want to, if it's a new material, I bench it a little bit. I mean, I've been playing with this laser on the bench for about 3 weeks now, testing it. And, I finally went live clinically with it about a week or so ago. And so I'm a little bit slower to adopt things that directly affect my patients. But what I think we're going to get to with the increase in high-speed mills and high-speed 3D printing is, I really think that at some point in time, you were talking about, is there something, that maybe we'll miss that in 50 years dentists will go, well, of course. One of those things I think is diagnose a need for ortho today and then start the case tomorrow, because we'll be either milling or printing our own aligners quickly, easily, predictably. And, it's all about the precision in all of this, and precision and speed. And when you can make those aligners, quickly and easily in your office, and people are doing it already, but we are rapidly approaching a point when that's not going to be anything but maybe an afterthought. Take some images, load it into your system, have the software run the simulation. Here's this, break it down into how many aligners, bang, 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 and right out they come. That's where it's going.
I think it's going to be
amazing when it happens.
Show me that laser.
Yeah.
And that's CAO Group?
Yep.
And I just wanted to, I could only be podcasting John Flucke when I can go in the CA Group under laser, and it's not even on the deal, but John's got one holding in his hand. It is not on their website.
I hope it's okay that I'm showing it. Now I'm probably in trouble.
So what's the name of that one? What's the name of that one?
This is the Monet. The Monet. They have Picasso, which is their line of soft tissue lasers. So I think kind of trying to keep with the great artists, they're calling this one Monet. But this is a 450 nanometer laser. And like I said, on my bench, I'm getting depth of cure of 8 millimeters with this bad boy.
Okay, so that the first thing I thought of when you started saying that, when you said 8 millimeters, is are you tempted to do the bulk fills?
Once again, Yes and no, depending on the situation. I don't think I'd throw 8mm of composite in there because I'm worried about material shrinkage and some other stuff that goes along with that. But I think you could certainly do a 3 or 4mm depth of cure with a lot of these materials that have a fairly low coefficient of shrinkage, and definitely do that. You can also, with something like this that has that much intensity, you can clear, if you're doing something that'll transmit light like Emax, you can send the light straight through that and, help set your cements when you're doing it. Obviously, if you're bonding things into place for ortho, you've got, things like brackets. If you're doing wire ortho or whatever, being able to go and work around those situations. A high intensity light is great for those kind of applications.
What is it about Utah? It seems literally, I'm starting to wonder if there is something in the water. It's like CAO groups from Utah. Ultradents from Utah.
Right.
There's got to be 20 high-tech companies. And you being the high-tech guy, I'm surprised you haven't moved to Utah. You had Silicon Valley, then you have the Utah Silicon Slopes. But what do you think it is? Why is there? It seems like a third of all the high-tech dental companies are in Utah, from Dentrix.
You know what? I agree. Dentrix, Dentrix, Henry Schein's whole electronic solutions, branch is in Utah. Dental Intel is in Utah. Weave, the patient communication company's in Utah. Curve Dental, the cloud computing practice management system, they're in Utah. It is amazing. A lot of smart people in Utah, and I'm not really sure why. One of the other things, if you're a black helicopter kind of guy, the Utah data center is in Utah, which is where the NSA is storing all of their stuff. They've got this massive, huge building out in the middle of nowhere that supposedly you can't even get a cell signal within like 30 minutes of the place. But it's just nothing but hard drives and storage for all the information that the NSA and the CIA are, vacuuming up about us, supposedly. But yeah, I don't know what it is about Utah, but there are a lot of smart people and a lot of really smart companies that are out in that part of the world. And I wish I knew why. Well, heck, Gordon Christensen's in Utah, for God's sake. Maybe it's all directly related to him.
My God, there is something about it. I don't know what it is, but it is.
He and Rella may have sprinkled like the magic dust. I don't know, something that made everybody so smart. But yeah, you're right. And there's a lot of high tech companies just in general that are located out there, either headquartered or have divisions. I know Adobe's got a huge presence out there as well as some others.
Yeah. So you wrote an article on one where Axis Dental Solutions Versatile 5x400.
Yeah, that is a really cool 5-axis mill, the Axis 5x400. We are putting that through its paces in the office now. You can mill just darn near anything with this. You can do crowns, you can do bridges, you can mill any material in dentistry that you can imagine. You can mill titanium abutments for implants. You can mill gold with it. You can mill zirconia. It's a phenomenal thing. And what's interesting about that particular device is people think, when they think of mills, they normally think of something like a CADCAM device for dentistry where, it mills a crown, an inlay, or an onlay in like 20 minutes. A true 5-axis mill, and this Axis Dental company, they're actually a branch of a larger company that's been making CAD-CAM systems for industry for quite some time. But this thing, you can mill anything with it, and it's phenomenal. When it comes out of the machine, it looks like it's ready to go in the mouth. It's just stunning what this thing will do. Now, we've only had it online for about a week and a half, and we've got a couple of cases that we've done with it so far that we're really, really happy with. But I am excited to get this thing cranking and really do some stuff with it.
Well, let's talk about that, because when you and I were in school, oh my God, I always think of Flucke, Farran, Gettleman. Gettleman is an endodontist who wrote Chapter 8 for Pathways to the Pulp with Stephen Cohen. CADCAM was a real thing. I mean, it was in France, and they were programming this when we were in school, and they were talking about it at UMKC. Well, now you've been out of school 32 years, and I would say, you know, when radiology came out, I mean, it just like a domino effect went clean across dentistry. But chairside milling,
absolutely.
Chairside milling hit a wall at about 15%. I mean, I don't even think it got to the 80-20. Is that?
I don't think it did either.
Is it stuck there, or do you think chairside milling will make a comeback, or did the fact that it never got to 20% because there's something? Why did it only disrupt 15%? It missed the 85%? Why do you think so?
I think here's what I think happened, Howard, is I think number one, it was a great technology. In fact, you know, what's really funny is you're talking about it was around when we were in school. I remember our last semester in school, spring of '87, and I can't remember who it was, but it was one of the very last Crown and Bridge lectures we had. And the gentleman that was discussing things with us talked about, he said, there's this thing and they're using it in Europe now. It's, you know, they're trying to get it to work, but, you know, it grinds a block of porcelain into a crown. And we think that point in time, you know, you won't need impression. And I remember thinking to myself, well, geez, I got to get one of those right now because I hate taking impressions. But anyway, so jump forward. And I think it's a great technology. There were a couple of hangups. I think number one, dentists weren't ready for it. In the age group that you and I are in, I'm an outlier. You know, I started taking computers apart in my office in the 90s just because I was curious about what made them work. And that kind of led me into, you know, I was like a dental hacker. I was taking things apart and forcing them to work and do things that they weren't made to do, you know, back in the day when you couldn't just call somebody and, hey, how do you do this or buy something? And so when I got a chance to get my hands on a CEREC, I bought a CEREC 2. Which booted with a floppy disk, and I won't even go into describing that for anybody born after 2000. But, you know, it took some work to do these. And the other thing about milling back then was it was like a kid. You know, when it was good, it was very good, and when it was bad, it was horrid. And I think some people got tired of fighting it. And they just, you know, they didn't see an immediate clinical result in it. And they thought, I don't want to be a computer guy. I want to be a tooth guy. Now I think things have totally changed. We've got a much more digitally literate generation in practice now that really understands it. Plus, we've got these phenomenal intraoral scanners that are, you know, just allowing us to, you know, basically recreate the stuff right there in real time on the screen. And, you know, now when you can send that out and mill it, and doggone it, it looks just like put there, you know, before you prepped it, and it happens in 15 or 20 minutes. I think now people are starting to see the upside in it. And the other thing is it's become so easy and so predictable that you don't need to be a hacker to grasp it anymore. You know, now, I mean, in my office, when we brought this Axis mill in, when, you know, they came and trained everybody, the last person that I wanted trained was me. You know, I want, because I'm a big believer like you are, of find smart people that do a great job at what they do and then let them do it and get out of their doggone way. So I wanted the staff and the associate doctors trained on that way before I was, because I want them to know how to do it. I don't want to have to, you know, design and do all that stuff. That's not where my specialty lies. You know, my specialty lies in treating patients and breaking stuff that manufacturers send me to, you know, to see how durable it is. And I think now we've got a generation that understands it, but we've also got companies that have now simplified this to the point that it's really predictable. And so I think it's going to take off.
And why? And what do you think specifically about Axis Dental Solution, though? I mean, there's so many. See, the kids are telling me that, you know, like when they come out of dental school, there's now 400 different dental implant companies. That the patents come off clear aligners, there's now 40.
Right.
So they're looking at old dogs like you and me saying, if I was going to chairside mill today, for whatever reason. What do you have a dog in that fight? Which one would you go after, and why?
You know, right now, if you want to just do single units, for instance, I would look at the prime scan. It's a good unit. It works really, really well.
By who?
What I love about this,
who's prime scan?
that's oh, doggone it. I got to look it up. I can't think. I'm just drawing a total blank on it. Give me just 1 second. I am old, you have to give me a break on that.
We are old.
And I got so much dental stuff rattling around in my head that it's CEREC. So that's Sirona. I thought it was Sirona, but I didn't want to say because I was having kind of a glitch and I wanted to make sure. Yeah, it's the new, it's basically the new CEREC version, CEREC Prime Scan. And it does a tremendous job. The Axis unit that I have literally has multiple tools, multiple burrs, and the little milling arms actually will stop and pick up a different instrument depending on, what you want to do, depending on the material, depending on the size and other things. And that's what makes it so doggone precise. It allows you to do all these different things. But if you just want to do single unit kind of things, there's a bunch of really good mills on the market that will do that for you. The prime scan, when combining that mill with the scanner, is really pretty amazing. I mean, when you scan with that, I've heard it described. I thought this was a great description. They said it looks like you're just pouring water over the image. It just, it just flows over it. There's no, individual little clicking or photos or whatever. And so that would be the dog that I would turn loose if I was looking at, doing some single units in my office by all means.
Okay, now I'm gonna have to. And by the way, kids, when I'm asking John this, it's really easy to get him in trouble because when you ask someone, like I'm about to ask him his favorite. I mean, we're all friends with a lot of these people. And, we don't want to run into them at the bar and they say, I'm sorry, if you're, I meant at the yoga studio eating yogurt, they're like, dude, you pick the other one. But here's a big high-tech problem. And this is what I want to get you on the show the most about is, if you talk to an oral scanner guy, I mean, the oral scanning, there's so much, what I like to call Mish information after Carl Mish. Get it? Mish information.
I like that.
That's what the founder of who was Implants Direct. Who was that dog?
I know I can't think of his name, but I know you're talking about.
Yeah. Oh my God, what is that guy's name? Well, here I'll go to my. Anyway, the Implant Direct guy.
Now I don't feel so bad for having to look up Prime Scan. You just made me feel better.
Implants Direct. He lives in Palm Springs. He's got a jet. Implants Direct founder Jerry Niznik. So
thank you, Niznik. Yeah.
When Jerry would argue about anything with Carl, he'd call it misinformation. But here's the deal.
I like that.
If you talk to the oral scanners, they say, well, oral scanning's better than impression. You have less remakes. Then I go talk to the lab people, and they say, hey, if you're a sloppy schmuck with a polyvinyl polysiloxane, you're a sloppy schmuck scanner.
Right.
They say they say you either care, and if you really care, you can do it with anything. And then, but then if you're blood and guts and you just want to be an implantologist, a lot of them like BioLace, the 3Shape scanner out of Copenhagen. Right. But then the other fast-growing segment is clear aligners, and then they're like, well, dude, Align owns that deal, and they own iTero. So are you sitting there thinking, well, if you're going to be an orthodontist, you need to go iTero, or if you're blood and guts implant, you need to do 3Shape, and how do you, in fact, do you even think that oral scanning increases the quality of impressions? I mean, do you think it does, or do you think it's hype?
It's not hype. It's not hype at all. The digital world in that is tremendously better. However, garbage in, garbage out. If you don't care enough to take a good impression and you don't care enough to take a good scan, you're not going to get good stuff. I mean, that's just the bottom line. If you're sloppy, it just allows you to be sloppy faster. but it is a lot more accurate. I'll tell you, the interesting story is the reason, and you mentioned Align, which is it's a great little piece of this story, and you may know this, Howard. I mean, you know the business better than I do, but what I heard was the reason Align bought iTero was, their original model was send us your polyvinyl siloxane impressions, we'll pour them, and then we'll use that information basically to create our whole Invisalign process and send you the aligners. And supposedly they were getting such lousy impressions that they said, we got to figure out a way to get rid of all these pulls and all these bubbles and all these discrepancies. And so they started looking and they said, oh my gosh, we should look at this digital scanner thing because it's much more accurate. It's much more smooth. People can see their mistakes, and hopefully fix them. So in that regard, they bought that company based on the fact that they wanted better results. So it is better. I mean, I can tell you it's better. It's more accurate. I don't spend nearly as much time making adjustments on my fixed prosthetics. I mean, we even scan, nowadays we're scanning for partials with our iTero, and I happen to have an iTero system, but you can make any of them work. And the nice thing is now things are really going cross-platform to where Invisalign integrates with a lot of different companies, so it doesn't an iTero to go to Invisalign. You can have several other options and still go to Invisalign. You can still have, you can send to pretty much the lab of your choice, no matter who you're using. But the accuracy of this stuff is there. It is proven beyond a doubt. In fact, with the clear aligner space, this was really interesting. I saw a study, I think it was done by the Navy, just recently, where they said that dental mills are so accurate that clear aligners that are milled versus clear aligners that are printed can cut 1 week off of each aligner. Meaning basically, if you're going through 18 aligners, you could take off 18 weeks of treatment because the milling is so much more accurate on the digital aspect that you can move teeth faster. So I don't have a doubt about how accurate it is. I do have a doubt on how dedicated people are to use it accurately.
But you just nailed it. It gets rid of the stack. So if I take an impression, and for easy math, just say it's plus or minus 20 microns, then I pour it up in stone, and for math, it sets up plus or minus 20 microns. Then I wax up a crown, and I take that off plus 20 microns. Then I invest it. So by the time I get to the crown, I've got 100 microns built in. So if a scan can get rid of all these steps, it can take a week off, no doubt about it. But I want to ask you about your views on technology and in dentistry and how they're different for views for everything else. Like when you and I got out of school, a big screen TV was a meter wide, a meter deep. You and I probably together couldn't lift up a big screen TV in the 80s. And every year it gets better,
Agreed.
faster, easier, higher quality, smaller, lower price. The price always comes down.
Right.
Now, my first big screen TV was $5,000, and it was a big box. My last one is bigger, and it's $500, and it can hang on a nail. So everybody loves it when that happens. But then Smiles Direct comes out and says, hey, when you and John got out of school, ortho was $6,500. 32 years later, guess what? Still $6,500. They haven't gone down $1.
Right.
So we use a lot of technology. We use oral scanning. We use AI. We did all this stuff, eliminated the middleman. That's what Walmart does. Buy direct, sell direct. And now here it is for $2,500. And the dentists say, hey, well, that was good for big screen TVs, and I'm glad I'm not listening to 8-track stereos and CDs, but you're not doing that to my profession. And they come out with guns loaded. So it's almost like it's a double standard. Why is it a double standard for TVs and ortho?
I don't think it's a double standard. I think it's an apples to oranges kind of thing. My thing on ortho and Smile Direct Club is if you don't know the patient has decay, do you want to be moving a bunch of teeth, that need root canals or might snap under the pressure? do people understand what they're getting into? One of the things that I think is really interesting now is this whole deal where Smile Direct Club has been telling people, well, we'll refund your money, but we'll only refund your money if you sign this airtight non-disclosure agreement, and then plus you go out on the internet and you remove every bad thing from every website that you ever said anything negative about Smile Direct Club. You know what? If I treat a patient poorly and they go out and hammer me on Yelp and Google and Facebook, you know what I can do? Zip. I can't force them to do a thing. And my thing is, how about you just provide a really good service, and if people aren't happy with it, you offer them a refund and tell them, we're sorry we couldn't meet your needs. Maybe you should see an orthodontist, and there are several good ones in your area, as opposed to, well, we're thinking about giving your money back, but the first thing we want is this ironclad contract signed. And we don't want you to ever, remove everything you've ever told about us online. The other part of it is, electronics are totally different. Electronics are not living, breathing things. Great joke one time, and I think it really kind of goes to this. A surgeon goes into a car shop, and the mechanic says, hey, you know what? I just replaced, a piston in your car, and it's sort of like a heart transplant. How come, you get thousands of dollars for a heart transplant, and I got, $500 to change a piston? And the surgeon said, change it while the car's running. And it kind of goes with that. We're talking about living, breathing things that can have bad outcomes. If I screw up my TV and I plug it into a 220 instead of a 110, all I've lost is some cash and probably a lot of pride, maybe some ceiling tiles, depending on how the smoke goes. But I haven't caused permanent damage to a living structure, a living thing. And I think that's where all of this goes. Do no harm, not do harm, but then cover your tracks really, really well so that the mass market doesn't know about it. And you talk about getting in trouble with people. I probably just signed my own death warrant right there, but so be it.
We can talk about, technology can be anything from a laser to contacts. I still, 32 years out of school, the hardest thing I do is still when I walk in the room and it's like, God dang it, it's a quadrant of MOD composites, MOD 2, 3, 4, 5. That's just, I'd rather do a molar root canal. I'd rather pull 4 wisdom teeth. It's just, you're just going to sit down and burn an hour. And the hardest thing is still the damn contact. I know you wrote a blog about the paleodent, the palodent. So it's the non-sexy thing that everybody suffers with. No one, they want to talk about an apex locator, not a contact on a composite. But is there anything sexy about a class 2 interproximal contact? You wrote a deal on palodent.
I think. Yeah. So one of the things that people don't think about is, I love the expression where, well, why do we do it this way? Well, because that's the way we've always done it. And we don't really think about the why. And I've written a couple of articles in the last couple of years about why. Why do we do things? I'm a why guy. I always want to know why. I used to catch all kinds of flack when I was in school because they would say, Flucke, turn the wedge at this angle. And I would go, why? And then they'd get all bent out of shape and they'd think I was questioning their authority. And really all I wanted to know was, why is it important that, like the flat part of the wedge be against the band? I just, if they'd have told me because it provides, better pressure and holds the band in place, I'd have been happy, but instead I ended up doing push-ups, But people don't think about the whys sometimes. And why are we using Toffelmeyers? Well, we're using Toffelmeyers because we've always used them. But Toffelmeyers would deform when you were condensing an amalgam. And you could really, you could shove that amalgam in there. And if you had that band wedged well, you weren't going to get an overhang, but you would distort and burnish that band with the pressure. Lots of pushing and the band would move and give you a good contact. Well, now you can't do that because it's not as viscous a material. So a Tafelmeyer, trying to get a good contact with a Tafelmeyer is a lot harder. So Paladent, Triadent, Garrison, they all make these sectional matrix systems. I call them C-bands just because, they look like a C. And I just think it's easier to say when you're clinically doing something, hand me a C-band than hand me a sectional matrix, system or whatever. But those things, if you ever look at those bands, they're contoured completely differently. They look like the side of the tooth you're replacing. And so there is a height of contour and those kind of things. And it's not sexy at all, but it does give you the good anatomical contact that you want, as opposed to the patient comes back and you look at your bite wing, and rather than having a contact like that, which is kind of what you want, you see a contact like that, where, the marginal ridges are the only things touched, and you've got these big food traps underneath, and you think, garbage. What you just said, I just spent 60, 90 minutes doing this 4 months ago, and now I'm pulling hunks of Frito-Lay out of there because the contacts aren't right. And by thinking about the why of your doing it and using these matrices that are, pre-configured to recreate the part of the tooth that you're removing or that have been removed by decay, just gives you a better clinical outcome. And my big buzz in what I do is clinical technologies that improve patient outcomes. I mean, there ought to be a reason why we're doing these things. And you just need to kind of think it through and think, why am I using this? Or why wouldn't I use something else? Why are my contacts all point at the marginal ridge and I'm not getting the same contacts that you get when you see these amalgams that were done 20 years ago on a bite wing? What's the difference? It's not the doctor usually, it's the technology.
Interesting. I sit there and weave and curve. It sounds to me, I don't get it. I mean, why would McDonald's want to have 40,000 locations where each place had a server and had to have security software and updates and all? It just seems like the cloud would just be the obvious. But then again, you look at your homies and most people don't do that. Is it because the cloud is bleeding edge? Is it not quite leading edge? What are your thoughts on weave and curve dental out of Utah?
Okay. If I was a guy graduating today, or maybe even graduating in the last 10 years, I'd look at the cloud big time. They solve the security issues. They solve the hardware issues. They're device agnostic. They don't care how you connect, as long as you can connect to the internet. Weave is a patient communication company. When you're using voice over IP, which is the technology that does that, patients never get a busy signal because you have an infinite number of phone lines. With Weave, people can call an office, and the minute the call comes in, the system identifies who's calling, pops up on the screen with all the patient information that you might need about that patient before you ever pick up the phone. For instance, with you, if you were a patient of mine, and you called, and we're using Weave, we could pick up the phone and say, Howard, how are you? How was that lecture in Tahiti? Because we've got that in the system. So I think the cloud is hugely important. And I think the reason a lot of the old folks like us the reason I don't use the cloud is I'm so data heavy that trying to get all of that in the cloud for the amount of time left that I have to practice, I don't know if the payoff is there for me. I mean, I'm sitting on literally terabytes of information because everything I do is digital. So I've got cone beam scans, I've got digital impressions, I've got photographs, radiographs, all of that stuff. And I don't know if it's worth it for me in the long run to learn a new software system and be in the cloud. But if I was a younger doctor and I didn't have all of that information, I'd be looking at cloud patient management in a heartbeat. I mean, I just had to go through at the end of life cycle of Windows 7 just recently, I had to replace every computer in my office, 20 workstations in this facility, and all the reconfiguring and all the other things. It wasn't just the cost of the 20 computers, it was putting the whole network back together. It was ridiculously expensive. And with a company like Curve, doesn't matter. As long as you've got a computer, that has a browser on it, you can connect. And with Weave, having all that information that you can, connect to your patients, send them messages, manage things with them. They also do paperless intake, so that patients can, I'm a new patient. Great. We're going to send you, securely all the forms. You fill them out securely, that you send them back. They get dropped into our patient management system. All of that is done automatically. People should be doing that in a heartbeat, because who wants to mess around with, even with an iPad, who wants to check in an office when they can do it at home, where they're working on a split screen or 2 monitors. They've got Netflix on one, and they're, putting their demographic information into another. And they walk in and they're like, "Hi, I'm Howard Farran. I'm here for my 1 o'clock appointment." They look and they go, "Oh yeah, Howard, gosh, I can see that, you've checked in online. Let's just get you right on back." I mean, that's the way of the future. And people should be doing that. I think a lot of times older people just don't see it. And it's kind of the old thing too of, well, I've always had a server. I've always had workstations. And that's one of the things that drives me crazy, is we've always done it that way.
You mean the Chicago Midwinter meeting was always in the middle of winter? Did it start during the Ice Ages?
And it's always been colder than dirt. Yeah.
Oh my God.
It started during the Ice Ages, and the Ice Age never left, unfortunately. It's a great meeting. I just wish it was warmer.
I loved your blog on Omnichroma. Again, all this information is on blog.dentical.com. But
Correct.
What impresses you about Omnichroma enough to write a blog on it?
Okay. Hey, real quick, I do want to say one thing about blog.dentical.com. I am, just so that everybody knows, this is kind of cool, I think. I started the blog, I'm not even sure how long ago, but I started the blog because writing for Dental Products Report, as you know, with Dentaltown, you write for a paper publication, and you could write the best article of your life, but if everybody reads it or nobody reads it, you don't know, because it's paper. So I started the blog because I thought, now I can see if I write something, does it strike a chord with people? Do a lot of people read it? Do they not? I just passed 2 million unique visits on the blog in the last week. And anyway, I'm very happy about that. And I'm honored that people think enough of what I've got to say.
That's huge. 2 million, man. Congratulations on that.
Yeah. Thank you.
But
Thank
I
you.
have a feeling
But
I have a feeling you would have done everything the same if you never even wrote a blog. Because I've just known you from dental school. You're just into this. I mean, it's you. You just love dentistry. You love technology. It's like if you got paid for this or didn't get paid for this or had one view or no views, it wouldn't change. It's just what you do. It's how you roll, and you're damn good at it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Getting back to your original question about Omnichroma rocked the dental world. The idea of a composite that pretty much matches every clinical situation as far as shade, that's phenomenal. We've all been in those situations clinically, where you're looking and you're like, okay, this is going to be, some shade that, there's only one, you only got, one shade in the whole world's going to fit this. And then you pull it out of the container and it expired in 2004. And you think, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Or you sit down and you say, okay, hand me the A3.5, and you get we're out of 3.5, and you're like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? The inventory part of that, and, is huge. The part, or the piece of it where you actually have to buy the inventory and keep it and then maybe toss it because it expires. Composite is something that's kind of hard to keep track of. And so, how many times have you opened a drawer somewhere and found a bunch of, syringes or cartridges of composite that you didn't even know you owned, but they're too old to use? So Omnichroma came along with this concept of, hey, guess what? One shade pretty much matches everything. And I personally think it probably works in about 90% of the clinical cases that I've used it in. That was phenomenal to me. They turned the industry on its ear by coming up with this idea of faster, easier, better, simply by coming out with a shade where, you've heard the old thing, one size fits all, kind of one shade fits all. And I was just blown away by that.
So do you think it's gonna be a bigger thing? I mean, do you expect what is it, Tokiyama?
Tokiyama.
Tokiyama,
Yeah, and
Tokiyama Omnichroma. Do you think it's gonna? I mean, and basically, it's a scale breakthrough on light and translucency and reflection. Do you think it's gonna be a big deal in dentistry?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You look around now and you see other companies trying to do the same thing, which is phenomenal. I'll tell you the other thing, Howard, not very many people know about this, but I'll throw it out here so that people will know. In June of this year, there is going to be a composite that's released by a company called Nobio. It's Nobio, and Nobio is out of Israel, and this is a material. It's a composite material with an additive in it that is antimicrobial. It's not an antibiotic. It's actually a nanoparticle that causes cell lysis. It doesn't decrease. It's just when cells come in contact with it, it kills them. But it's not something, where you start out at, at a high concentration. Over the years, it goes down. It stays constant. It's almost like an electric fence for bacteria. They can't stand to be near it. And they're going to come out with their composite this summer, and that's going to turn the industry on its ear again, because what is it now? 5 years, I've heard, is the expected lifetime of a two-surface composite. And the normal reason for that is recurrent decay. And if you could put something in the tooth and know that bacteria can't survive in that environment, how cool is that?
Dude, I flew all the way to Israel to podcast that guy. I was in Israel the week before Christmas and did some lectures and podcasts, and I went to that place, and I think that's a groundbreaker, because to me, dentistry, it's really bad. I feel dentistry went in the wrong way after we graduated. The fact that when we were in school, we did amalgams. Had to do 55, 60 amalgams.
75.
75. And a mercury amalgam, if you recall, is half mercury, and you'll never find that in the multivitamins. They never give that stuff to kids. The other half is silver, as in silver diamine fluoride, tin, as in stannous fluoride, silver, zinc, everything in that is a toxic bomb to life. And those fillings last 38 years, and these morons on the lecture circuit would take them out and show, well, look at the recurrent decay, and they'd point to black scuzz. It's like, dude, can you throw that on a petri dish and see how that works out for you? I'm pretty sure it's just a bunch of dead crumbs. And then we replaced it with an inert plastic that freaking mold will grow on your milk carton. I mean, my God, it's like, and then we went from the crown, which all 7 of my crowns are gold crowns, inlays, onlays, and zinc phosphate cement. And we say, oh no, let's make them something really pretty like Empress. And it's like, dude, I'm short, fat, and bald, and it's a back molar. Who would want a translucent? I mean, if you told me that I should have a translucent molar, I would say you're drinking whiskey or something. It doesn't make any sense. So I always felt like dentistry, the aesthetic health compromise, really took us down a different path. I mean, we went from in 87, fillings lasted 38 years. And now we have data on hundreds of millions of fillings, and they don't last 6.5 years. And of course, not in my hands. Not in my hands. Every dentist has special magic hands. I've been informed about this. They never cone cut an X-ray. They never do anything wrong. But it's been a crazy the aesthetics. But what is the number one goal of every species? To reproduce and have offspring. I mean, I could explain this amalgam thing, and I don't anymore, because you can explain it for an hour and a half of how it's just a superior restoration and everything. Then when you're done, they say, I want tooth colored. And you're like, okay, dude, it's a second molar. No one will see it. I'm the only one that knows. I still wanted to. I mean, they're a peacock. They want to spread their wings and put you in their hypnosis thing, and they know the only job you have in life is to replace yourself before you drop dead. And so that means amalgams are gone and these composites are out. But that omnichroma, that is a cool thing. And this Novia, I was in Israel at that plant, and I think that it's the holy grail dentistry. I see two holy grails going on. All the implant companies are trying to make a cement that you do something to, you touch it or something, and it goes soft again, so you could take it off. So they're all these labs are trying to make a reversible cement, and all the composite companies, whether it be Ivoclar or whatever, they all want an active ingredient in a composite. They all want something antibacterial. So when a bunch of anaerobes eat that stuff, they're all going to die. I feel like I know I've gone over. We're in overtime. I'm just trying to make sure I don't. I know when I get you on, I want to get you on. And by the way,
paid time and a half now that we're in overtime, right?
You what?
I said I'm getting paid time and a half now that we're overtime, right? Or is it double time for doing this now?
I don't know. Well, I have tried to pay you for 20 years. Every time I've seen you, I say, when are you going to leave Dental Products Report and come work for Dental Town? I'm reading on your own website, the best dental publication on the planet, and it says Dental Products Report. And by the way, I think you're the rock star of that magazine. I have to tell you that. I mean, you and Paul Fierstein.
He's over at he's at Dentistry today.
Yeah. But I
we
think
kind of fight. Oh, we should fight it.
And where's Marty Jablo at?
We're great friends.
Where's Jablo at?
He's still around, but he's not with the publication currently.
Well, tell him.
So if anybody's looking for a good tech guy to write, hey, Jablo is he's on the market. So
he's on the market. Well, you've been the single rock star of Dental Products Report of every time I've read it. I mean,
well, thank you.
Well, you have the must go to read column in that whole damn magazine. I mean, it's kind of like I mean, it just is. You're the signature of that magazine, and you're the reason I pick it up and read it.
Well, thank you.
But
you're the reason I pick up and read Dental Town. So maybe.
Well, I know
what goes around comes around, but.
Well, I know that the only time you pick up Dental Town is when you're in the bathroom and you're out of paper and you're like, thank God I have that Dental Town magazine right there in the basket. Do you wipe with the inside cover or the back page? Which how do you tear the paper on that magazine?
It's usually the product card is
the product card.
It's my favorite.
But hey, is there anything I wasn't smart enough to ask you? Is there anything that you're thinking? I bet he's going to ask this, and I didn't. Or is there anything I missed? Or that
No. Other than on just real quick on the whole thing with CAO Group and AMD, I was out there and met with those folks in January, and I'm. You know how it is. You sign these agreements and you can't talk about things that aren't on the market yet. But I would tell people to keep an eye on CAO and AMD. They've got a lot of cool stuff in development that's going to come out. I mean, this curing laser is just one of those things, and I can't talk about a lot of them, but there's some really cool game-changing stuff coming out of that company. And so I would tell people that you haven't heard of them because they've normally for years and years been making products for other manufacturers and third-party manufacturing and labeling. But there's a lot of cool stuff coming from that company, so keep your eyes open for it. I'm trying to think of anything else that we could have covered and didn't. Can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Well, let's just have a moment. Let's just have a moment of honesty before we get off the phone. Now, whenever two men from dental school get together, they always ask each other who was the best looking girl in the class. So we at least have to be honest. We at least have to be honest, because this is what we would do if we met in a bar, and it's gonna Stephanie Caramata,
Well, there was that
DD.
time you dressed up like a girl, and you actually kind of look. I'd had a couple, but you didn't look so bad, quite honestly.
And I blew that joke. I blew the joke because I was supposed to be Woody Oakes' wife on the deal, but they put me in a 2-piece bathing suit and a wig and so much makeup on. No one knew it was me. No one knew it was me. I mean, hell, I'm a bald guy with a wig on and makeup, and everybody was like, "Who was that chick that Woody Oakes was with?"
They were
I'm like, "Oh my god,
she's kind of hot. Who the heck was that?"
You can't overdo the makeup girl thing. But hey, John Flucke, technical editor, Dental Products Report, Chief Development Officer, Seller and Consulting. Tell Lou I said hi. Thank you for all that you've done. And if DPR ever gives you any shit, say, well, you know, Howard, he wants me to go to Dental Town. And on that note, I hope you have a rocking good day. Go Chiefs, go Royals.
Thanks, Howard. It's always great to talk to you. Who'd ever thought in 1987, when we were sitting next to each other in all those classes, and you kept trying to wake me up and say, Flucke, pay attention. I think this is important. Who would ever think that we'd be doing this? You know, life's been good to both of us, and I appreciate you thinking enough to let me do this with you. Thank you.
Oh, man. Thanks for all you do for dentistry, buddy. Have a great day.
You too, buddy. You're a rock star.